with this, may I please welcome Mr. Prasad Jaladi today, who is founder and chief facilitator of Swaraksha, based in Austin, Texas, USA. Swaraksha is promoting innovation with sustainable ideas. He has established and managed consulting business in Silicon Valley and Austin. He has international experience in life sciences and IT. Mr. Prasad has held positions like president, managing director, and managed consulting, business development, R&D, quality analysis, quality control, pilot, and commercial manufacturing. Mr. Prasad has built international partnerships to foster innovation and entrepreneurship, works with scientists and organizations for technology commercialization. He is a mentor and judge at startup incubators and accelerators, and he has hosted several international conference training programs to promote science and technology. With this, may I please now welcome Mr. Prasad Jaladi and request him to start the webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Nidhi, for your kind information. Thank you, Dr. Mandar Kulkarni, and thank you, Dr. TNG Sharmaji, for hosting me here. I'm going in a helicopter view because I know that there are many students here, so let's do this thing easy on each other. So, can you see my screen here?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. So I'm trying to share what I know in my own journey as a student to entrepreneur. So it's kind of mix of my own experience and other great people like Dr. Mandar Kulkarni, etc. So I'm not trying to be too clever here, but again, just giving a common man sense of how they get into these things starting as a student. So the title of my talk is Idea to Entrepreneur Journey. I hope you could hear me well. So how I got into this. I'm an organic chemist by training. I did masters in Bhavnagar University, Gujarat, and I joined Dr. Reddy's group. My first instinct there was, they are going through FDA inspection. Then I moved on to another company after they got FDA approvals and all. I think I spent 3.5 years in Dr. Reddy's group, and I became a consultant for Shashan Drugs in Pondicherry. I should say Puducherry nowadays, I guess. So I was QA manager then, managing 20 chemists. I wrote SOP specs, and I even used computer in those days to provide data to FDA inspections for ANDA submissions. So later on, I did R&D, and I have invented a couple of processes, and this is kind of exciting. In those days when we were learning and working, we don't know what the hell we were doing, but we are doing, and it's progress. Most of the companies at that time in India were startups again. It excites everybody, and we do a lot of mistakes and we learn from that. So when I became an R&D guy, I invented a couple of processes which even has to deal with chemicals like nitromethane and MITC, which is the perfect Bhopal recipe. And this reaction used to run at 55 degrees unless we control it there. The standard operating procedure then was, please drain the reaction mass into effluent treatment plant, no questions asked. So at that stage, from that stage, I brought in some reactions involving such nasty reactants, rather chemicals, to room temperature. It is like playing with a snake. If you do something wrong, you would obviously blast a reactor, and you know what happens. You are literally letting the pharma industry area on fire. So that's a scary thing. We did without, with enthusiasm, with fear, and mixed emotions and all. So that gave a confidence. And personally, if I have to be honest, I don't even know that there is something called patent existing. So we did certain things mechanically because there is no Google in those days, so that's a quite wonderful journey to learn and do these things. So with all this background, I moved to US in 1998 as an SAP functional consultant. As I already told you, I might be a few guys who used computers in 1990 to submit data to FDA, and that made me to become an SAP consultant. And I moved to US, and then I ran business development for my own employer because they are going down because of the IT downturn when I entered. It changed my profile all of a sudden to pharma guy to business development in IT consulting. So one thing led to another, which I never expected. And in that journey, I involved in innovation and entrepreneurship, started hosting events with guests like Dr. Kiran Mazumdar, you name any government official coming from India. In those days, this happened between 2000 and 2005 very heavily. And in 2003, I made a trip to Hyderabad, and I attended first time in my life FABA's event called Bioasia, and that's where I met all these wonderful people like Dr. Bajaz and other team members still who are there around. And it's a quite good journey, and I built friendship with all those intellectuals, and I went on supporting life science industry, attending Bio International Conference, etc. So I kept on, opening this dialogue. How do we support technology between US and India? I'm not saying that I did great work in that direction, but at least I did some small things where I could actually facilitate a few things like outsourcing a project, scientific project, through which we can actually detect TB using sputum on a litmus paper kind of thing. It's obviously a microfluidic technology, and we outsourced it from Austin to CCMB at Hyderabad. So this is out of love and friendship with scientists working at CCMB in those days, and we were actually chosen as the 4th best team in the world to compete in that global competition between US and India governments. And that's the fun part, and I brought it up because what I do in terms of supporting science and technology in India. So later on, I ended up as a mentor at UT Austin, University of Texas, Austin, and there is an affiliated innovation arm supported by Blackstone Launchpad, and I mentored students over there, and I became a mentor at other different incubation centers. And in this journey, interestingly, I am in between filmmaking, like pharma, API to blockchain, everything, including smart city kind of things. I don't know why I got my head into these things. It's just the company. It's just the company. We meet quite often at regular intervals in all these forums, technology forums, etc. And I started interacting with the Dell Medical College officials, MD Anderson folks. Somehow they figured out that I would be helpful in case if they need some help from India. So last year, I founded Swaraksha. It is basically giving more shine to my chemistry, because I'm really concerned about the global warming and other stuff going on around us, and I started believing that we should be doing better than that. So I picked up on sustainability. Well, talking about sustainability, it's not a new subject for me. As I said, in 1992, I played with nitromethane and MITC to make these things. Then I don't know. I was dealing with the sustainability, saving electricity by bringing a reaction to room temperature from 60 degrees is a big deal. At least you are saving a lot of energy. Then, not to mention about the improvisation in yield, etc. I also brought down a 40-hour running reaction to just 3 hours. That's nothing but saving energy again and improving quite substantial yields at that time. So after moving to US, I also started paying more attention, I would say, to green chemistry, etc. So this made me a person with a different view on the whole industry. So what I'm preaching nowadays is to think about what we do and do certain things that are biodegradable as much as possible, so that we can leave the planet green. The fun part around this idea is you would be selling the things, say if you make a printer which is biodegradable. I'm just giving an idea. So you would sell that printer, if you are a owner of a company, to each customer 3 times in their lifetime. Even though they work for 20 years, obviously they're not working like that. Their life is set up for 2 years, whether we like it or not. And any of these things pushed into landfill. So long story short, so this kind of environmental aspects, not to mention about the chemical pollution, air pollution, water pollution, etc. So what are we going to do? What are we going to offer to our next generation? That's where I put my soul around sustainability. I know it's hard, but again, it is doable. Many companies, including biotech companies, are doing nowadays more research on this kind of thing. So I'm not trying to put more focus on the regular thing, but I just want to push our discussion in an area which might be nascent. And before I do that, I put a movie to show what we are doing through Swaraksha. Basically, we are running like a virtual incubation center with some folks on board from different technologies. We're all volunteers here. That's the fun part. I gathered a child prodigy to a coral reef saver. So it's kind of a fun thing, and we're doing on different things. I myself involved in certain projects like biopolymers, biofuels, and some antioxidants, etc. To say a few. So here's a short movie on Swaraksha to let you know what we are doing actually. So that's the story of Swaraksha. Now I would like to take your attention a bit towards the international competition on IP in general. So I hope you could see this cartoon, and I know India is around 36th position, and China is in around 50th position, I guess. Even I'm sorry, even I can't view this. I can't expand the screen here. And let's move to the next screen so that we can see better here. So these are all the overall economy scores, and the reason why I'm talking about this is, IP is the thing that would make a company rich, to that matter, a country rich as well. So these are all the overall scores, and they may move like seesaw because it's a global competition. If you want to take a look at that, sometimes a country moves up and sometimes they go down. If you look at this landscape, since 2016 to 2020, companies went down, came up on IP competition. So that's the powerhouse of IP ownership of the companies or the nation, in short, in different years. So now I want to move on to typical types of innovation. So we call there are about four major innovations per se. So we call them as radical or disruptive innovation, and then we talk about incremental innovation, and there is under incremental innovation, you could deal with the product incrementally, you can improve the process incrementally, and you could also do service incrementally. For example, speaking of a service innovation, nowadays with the COVID in place, which is very worrisome, there are some models where a company could send some swabs to the houses of a patient and take the sample back and do it. Otherwise it's never used to be like that, right? So this kind of innovation is happening because of the situation. And again, speaking of product innovation, that's what I did. We changed the process on fly, and then we benefited by all means. And this is a journey of a company. You can, or even an entrepreneur, which may start from an idea. They can have a radical or disruptive idea. If they are working already in a company, well, let me step back. It could also happen through a student, which I'm going to talk in a while. So this radical innovation or disruptive innovation need not necessarily happen through a big pharma or biotech company or IT company for that sake. So it could be triggered by an individual or a group of people in general. So incremental is, a kind of a new game where you don't have to explain everything in detail, and you might have a smooth sail in putting your markets in the putting your products in the global market. Then I want to just touch this thing because I'm talking about sustainability. I want to bring your attention to two types of innovation again in this type. We call one of the model is cradle to grave. You would extract materials and you make production and you do distribution and you consume and then you throw it in landfills perhaps. Or if you are rich, if you have a big house, you can store it in your house. Some of the things are like textiles, clothes, etc. We keep them at house. Again, why waste? Why we need to talk about waste? In terms of life science industry and hospital systems, we deal with a lot of waste. So this is something that we need to keep in mind, at least from now onwards. I hope we are not too late on this, because this waste management costs a lot down the road. In Indian scenario, sometimes these things get into water streams, etc., which would eventually cause more health problems. So prevention is better than cure. We all know about that. So I'm just giving an idea to keep an eye on waste. And the other model we look at is, my apologies if you guys can't see this thing really well, is avoiding the linear structure of the innovation and get onto a model called circular. This is cradle to cradle. You won't kill the product unnecessarily, and you will be using it in a different field in general. Even if it starts in one field, you will figure out the uses in other field where you could successfully leverage the material consumptions, and you basically virtualize all finite materials that might be involved in product manufacturing. There are two things going on the material side, and also on the other side, the green thing. We collect certain things from the customers, and then we extract biochemicals or even feedstock, and we cascade them and reuse them. And sometimes we can produce biogas with those things, and we can also do some cool stuff, exploring some farming opportunities to generate biochemical feedstock, and that creates whole new economy, even in the life science segment. I'm putting more emphasis on these things because conventionally it used to be about making medicines and drugs and some other treatment options, leveraging biotechnology, etc. Now the landscape expanded exponentially. So I certainly suggest students to look into this kind of opportunity. It is not just pill making or doing some work in biotech industries. This field is exploding like crazy. I just talked about my involvement in biopolymers and biofuels. And even antioxidants. These are renewable models. They give less stress on planet Earth too. So these are all the new ideas to explore. And I would encourage many students also to look into these things. No matter what we do, there is some circularity in these aspects. And now I want to move the things to some of the intelligent ideas. When I started researching about these things, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to me personally. What should I talk? There are so many things. But when I am browsing, I found some topics are very interesting to present, at least on this forum. Those are biomimicking or tissue manufacturing, artificial tissue manufacturing, etc. So when I'm doing some research, on a website I found this Pandorum company based out of Bangalore, which you might be aware already, is a very interesting company. Why I'm talking about this company? They stood 7th in world competition. Now, I'm so fortunate to bring this to my Indian friends here. I'm doing this with great gratitude. I can tell about US company stories and all these things, but when I saw this story, it excited me. It's happening right there. Which is a quite interesting thing. They were talking about making cornea, liquid cornea, and they were talking about making liver, through 3D printing and tissue printing, all those things, and they won a lot of accolades, like Entrepreneurship World Cup in 2019. They got funded by BIRAC and Bangalore, India, and they even won Forbes 30 under 30 awards. This started in 2009, if I remember it right, through two friends, Tuhin and Arun, and they won. It's just a thought, and they joined their forces together and they pulled through this thing. And Kiran Mazumdar was involved there, and my friend, another friend, Steve Samet, involved in there to support them. This is a global innovation. We are literally printing organs nowadays, leveraging 3D printing. This is huge. meaning we're taking our treatment options into a whole new world. Imagine two young students gathering their forces together, since 2009 and winning all these awards, reaping the funding and attracting funding and trying to be a global company. And their number is number 7 in the world competition. And that's why I thought it would be cool to talk about an Indian company that is creating waves in the world life science arena. So the next company I would like to talk about is a student again, who has been to University of Sussex. She's a graduate there. In her final year, she figured out she could make plastic out of fish waste. So to her credit, she also won 2019 UK James Dyson Award. It's kind of 35K, 30 or 35K award. And her company name is Marina Tax. They made plastic from fish scales and fish skin, which is a waste product, which is kind of 370 million tons in UK itself. So she is trying to avoid dumping all this used material into landfills or into water or even incineration. So this is an interesting story, which students could get inspiration. And here are the fish scales that she has collected, and that's the skin of the fish. And then she also used to, she used algae, and she collected red agar from algae to bind material while she is making a polymer out of the fish scales and fish skin. And she literally cooked in the lab, and this is a chemical reaction, by the way, or a process which is happening under 100 degrees, and she poured this magic potion into a tray and keeps it in dryer, and she gets films like that one, which could be used on a few things, to carry material, including letters, etc. This is a transparent thing, and you might be wondering, if we make this material from fish, perhaps it might smell. Actually, it is not smelling like that. It is stronger than the conventional plastic material that we use nowadays for carry bags, etc. And the research is still going on. She did some amazing research in these areas, being a student and winning awards and teaming up with nice people who can take her to the next level. Same thing happened with the funder industry as well. So this is how she got in a situation where she has invented a new whole thing without getting into reinventing the wheel of making these plastic bags out of fossil fuels anymore. So the interesting news here is this biomaterial biodegrades in 6 weeks of time, which is kind of non-toxic, and it won't smell, and it is stronger, and it is biodegradable. So this is a perfect example of circularity that I was talking a while ago. These are all the models that we could also explore in life science technologies rather than the conventional way. This is another field that is exploding. And well, before we get to that situation, I'm from India. I'm always worried about failure. That is inherent in our nature. So how do we break these things? We have to take risk with new ideas to progress. We can't build, I have a reason for this, we can't build IP wealth having 85% of people want to work for someone else. innovation won't happen like that, and that's where we can see our competition with the India. We are, sorry, China, we are catching up, but if you look at the difference between China IP management and the US IP management, well, they have gaps too, but again, they are working hard on that, and to progress, we need to do more work from Indian point of view to catch it. So another stigma that I want to bring it into play is, in general, India society would think failure is a bad thing. Actually, I would disagree with that. You would learn from failure too. So if we do that as a society, more individuals would get out of this fear of failure and they do extraordinary things. More investments would flow because there would be money, either in university research or in government research, etc. And we're already on the path of, creating quality government, university, industry, nexus buildup. But we got to do more in this thing to spice up the innovation game. To get there, we have to create flat work culture, turning down much hierarchical structure so that we can discuss openly about the science and technology, and we put everybody on the same page and we share the knowledge. And we also get to a situation where we use our intelligence for the success rather than over-competing. I worry about over-competing because, once we start over-competing, we bring the prices down. I'm not fan of high costs, but again, it is killing your neighbor's business or idea in short. So if we engage on making one product, one company after another, we are not doing good for ourselves. We need to figure out a best way to compete in a different way so that we can raise the national flag high rather than competing within ourselves for good at least, So I would say IP is a catalyst for enterprise and national wealth. So predominantly, most of the Indian licensed companies are focused on service, even though they started up doing new molecules, etc. But we got to get out of that that kind of situation, and we have to establish a fair competition, eliminating modern slavery, because this creates wealth, not only for the companies but also nation as well simultaneously. As I said, now we have to operate with healthy culture to compete with fair practices. And I say fair practices because unless you have an internationally proven framework, you won't be competing globally. Even to outsource certain things or to collaborate, you need to develop a culture within the organization that meets international standards. That's when the real deal flow starts more easily. And at the same time, we need to create a transparency. We need to actually nurture that thing right from bottom up and top to bottom with all openness at all levels. We can also, we are good in this actually. We can actually leverage affordable tools to identify opportunities. And we can strengthen our research at universities by following these things, and as well as in government research institutions, because they are feeding the economy, feeding into the research machine, and we all can get benefit out of it. Most of the products that we see in the market today are being researched 15 years ago. That was the beginning of that idea journey to come up this far. And innovation also need to incorporate environmental safety, because we need to live on this planet and we need to keep it safe for everybody. When I say everybody, that includes biodiversity and our future generations. So they also have equal right like us. So we can't overconsume these things. Unfortunately, we are on a overshoot mode in general. I don't want to scare you, but we are using 1.5 times of the materials that are on the planet yet. Meaning we are already in 50% deficit. So we have to be mindful of these things to create economies very strong. This is a worldwide problem as well. So every country is looking into these aspects. That's why I several times bring in sustainability into the game. I even became an ambassador for green labs. I know how labs would spend energy. I would surprise you by saying labs would spend more energy than a high-rise building in many instances. That includes freezers, etc., which involves in research anyway. So. Not to mention about water usage and other things. So we have to green our labs also so that we can efficiently use our resources. And that's whole new science anyway. And there would be certifications also for life science companies to brag about their achievement in lab-wise. So I can, if there is any labs of such that would like to get such certifications, I will be glad to help as well. So journey to entrepreneurship from student stage would start with confidence on yourself. You have to evaluate yourself. The idea may be wrong. Sometimes it might appear good, and if you don't act on it immediately, it would be a bad idea sometime. Timing is also important. That's what I mean to say. Don't hide your inhibitions. When you have an idea, discuss openly with your friends and everybody to see what they think about that idea. And then research on the competition. You have an idea, and it would eventually pan out as a business at the end of the day. So you have to research around the competition and place yourself that you would be somewhat unique, if not the routine idea, and make a business plan out of these things. Why I'm telling all these things? This is what I deal in my everyday life. When I meet people in incubation centers in university setup, this is what we do. Students come to me asking, "Hey, I got this idea. What do you think about those things?" So this is an open discussion. They can choose any mentor they want. In fact, every university system here has a group of mentors from different technologies, different backgrounds, so that we can refine the ideas. It also includes IP specialists to review the betterness of the idea and guide those students, because it's a nascent world and they just come with fresh ideas, and sometimes they they don't know that they are again reinventing the wheel. So that's the world we live in if we don't pay attention to what we want to do. So and you got to deal with mentors, or you may choose mentors at one point of time to polish your idea. And mentors obviously would be having experience, many times exponential experience, because they run companies. They might be scientists, they might be attorneys, and you find all walks of people with this kind of knowledge. So they certainly help you to refine your ideas and put that to work in a meaningful way. And at the stage, you might want to register your business. Perhaps, even before doing this, you would gather your team. Even at university, just like the two cases I have described, you might find some cool friends who have similar ideas or at least the inhibition to do something together. It's a journey, and you have to be very mindful of choosing them. And you need not go by emotions, because they are like your life partners. It's like marriage. You have to understand them inside out, and it is going to be a roller coaster for everybody involved in this journey. So that you have to choose a team that grounds well, thinks well, and collaborate whenever it is needed, even when there is a struggle for money, because you just starting your journey, and these kind of emotions or unprofessionalism shouldn't hinder your progress. So you need to be very, very mindful of these selections. You have to vet as much as possible. You can take time on that. Once you make a mistake, it is going to cause you, it is going to make you lose time and money also. And sometimes the idea wouldn't even fly because of these internal quarrels. So you have to be really, really mindful about choosing your part, choosing your team. So I want to paint a picture on how this IP engine runs in US context, at least. On the left-hand side, we have universities, entrepreneurs, incubators, and several partners that would collaborate with all those things. And we have corporations, and we have sponsors that would sponsor so many things, including research, and we have investment ventures. On the right-hand side, at least to my right-hand side, there would be a lot of technology intelligence works through these things in terms of landscape analysis, etc. And these ideas would be prospected in IP sense, and they would be positions for potential exits and mergers and acquisitions as well. Why I'm saying this is, startups would be acquired by big companies. Big companies nowadays not investing money because of a couple of reasons. They are out of steam, and they are not working as fast as small startups. So they are on buying spree of startups, because they spend less money on innovation, and they sit on mountains of money. They can easily buy a startup. So they are becoming kind of dull. So most of the companies recently are buying startups, where they find a lot of benefits, because they have the strength of marketing, business, and connections worldwide. So this is an interesting area how you keep your company intact, if at all, if you want to keep it to yourself. It's a challenging thing. You as a team with your colleagues within the company need to work together on this kind of thing. You can't rupture this growth bubble if you want to move it to higher levels. So with all these things, if you really want to exit, you can actually trigger a successful exit also. So to get you there, there are certain critical success factors that are listed in the center, and you would be taking services from startup incubators or accelerators on the ideas which have commercialization potential. You would create a mentoring board through these support systems. You would literally get hands-on assistance, technology solutions, and you would be also refining your IP asset strategic management, etc. That's where you get funding opportunities also. Without IP, you won't be funded that easy. The first question any angel investor or VC would ask you is, do you have an IP around your idea? or at least are you thinking about filing this? What are the merits, demerits of filing of those things, including trademarks, copyright management, etc. So these all eventually would also give you an establishment to exit, if at all you want to do that. And sometimes it's hard to fight with big companies also. Many companies succumb to that pressure anyway. So you need to keep this in mind. You have to have a strong team that would work with you no matter what you want to do as a group. So the next thing is to look into a model, how this thing works. I call this as a horseshoe model. Actually, speaking of IP, it has 21 nodes in worldwide context. In one phase you create IP. Next to it is you would try to protect your IP, and then you would like to commercialize your IP, and then you measure the IP performance. Actually, you talk about Genentech, any other big company, they are the companies because of their IP portfolios. They are stronger by that. It's not just building or their or research capabilities. They are sitting on the mountains of the patent, which gets them money, through investors, and eventually they make money out of the products that they own IP for. So that's how the story being managed. So this is the whole gamut, which would enable the game run like a horse, which is very rugged and with stamina. You can also, if you have good IP, you can also think about royalties and other things. Sometimes you would be getting industry collaborations, and you would be having fun at early stage fundraising, and you can also target market based on your IP regime. And for all that you have to do a thorough market research and FTO research as well. So this thing starts with capturing ideas and making money around it, and you would be having a solid IP advisor around you on all those things. Perhaps it could be an external company most of the time. So I would like to take you outside of this slide share, and I think, are we good on time now? I'm going to show yeah, thank you. So I'm going to show a video with how you would do these things in general. Well, you have an idea, and how do you know that idea is good? Or if you want to place your idea in between few ideas, you would evaluate. So for fun, I'm trying to take you to a ride for an automated advanced patent search. For this, I have to get out of this system, and perhaps I need to share that screen separately. So please bear with me.
Hello and welcome to Pattern Inspiration. In this video, I will give you a full demo on the functionality of Pattern Inspiration. I will use a case study, say roller skates. Roller skate.
Nidhi, please look at this.
Can you see the screen?
And I have about 5,600.
We can see the screen. I think it is your first slide of this particular presentation only.
find
I have to add another new share. Okay, 1 second. Please bear with me.
find related terms, and we'll find all the words in the patent database that have the same or similar context to roller skates. So then you can see.
All right, can you see this now?
Yes.
There we go. So this is about a automated software called Patent Inspiration.
In this video, I will give you a full demo on
Here is the demo.
of patent inspiration. I will use a case study, say roller skates, roller skate. In title and abstract, add the filter, and I have about 5,600 patent documents. Now, in order to be sure that I have all the necessary documents for my project, we have created something called Find Related Terms. So I place roller skate in Find Related Terms, and it will find all the words in the patent database that have the same or similar context to roller skate. So then I can see, of course, roller skate, inline skates, roller skates, inline skates. So I can choose, basically, select all the words that are relevant to my project. Roller skates, conventional roller skate, conventional roller skate, inline skates, assembly. Because often what happens is people use difficult words in their patents to make them difficult to find. With this tool, of course, you can identify roller blade, inline roller, all the words that are relevant. Roller skating, roller skates, and so on, rollerblade. And once you're happy, and you say, look, these are all the ones that I need, I will add that to my filter. They're added. I update my filter, and now I have 7,900 patent documents instead of 5,600. This is where the problem starts. Now, I'm not going to read 7,900 documents. But if you really want to, you can. There is a list view of these patents, and you can go one by one through these patents in detail. But more importantly, what we have created is a whole set of visualization tools. Meaning, how can we make sure we know what we know, or we know what we want to know in these patents without having to read them. Bibliographic, time-related, comparisons, maps, advanced text analysis, units, and then tools that have to do with our methodology, innovation, logic. Let me start with bibliographic. All the time you have a left side configuration. This is where you configure your own visualization, or templates, which is pre-configured. So we already have made some pre-configurations like academic, applicants, companies. You can make your own configurations as well, or pre-configurations. So you just click on what you think is interesting, and behind you, what happens is there's a dashboard being created. Whenever the analysis is ready, it shows you color. So for example, here you have the country map. So you can see not much going on in Africa, a lot in America, in China. And you can just click on that and say, this is Australia. This is where the patents are in Australia, and you can go in detail. So it's always like a helicopter view. And then you can go all the way down to the patent to see what is the detail in the patent. These are bibliographics. So many like inventor, academia, and so on. So I can just click on, say, companies, and you have a word cloud. So word cloud, as you will know, is basically a cloud of words. The bigger the words, the more patents behind it. And you can have here top 50, top 100, 250, whatever you desire. And you can start to edit this word cloud. Say Benetton and Benetton, these are the same. So I can take this one and put it in there. Or I can say rollerblade and rollerblade, it's the same. Or I can say, oh, SKF, it's about ball bearings. I don't need that. I will bin that. Or I want to put some color in there and say it's about K2 and Salomon and Nordica. So you can choose how to edit this. But the main, of course, use of this tool is you just click on them and you find what are the patents of K2 Corp here behind. And you see the 81 patents with a little also LinkedIn connection if you want to go to LinkedIn. So these are bibliographic tools. It's about who and where are these patents. And then we have time analysis. So time means show me the activity, the applicants, the company timeline, and so on. So it shows you basically over time what is going on. So it shows you here an activity. I can expand this graph a bit. Say it comes from here all the way up. It's a bit like a roller skate ramp here, and going down again and then you have basically a peak here in the year 2000, and this is active. So if I want to see 2017, I click on 2017, and I have the patents behind 2017. As you see here, mainly Chinese patents, so on roller skate or rollerblades. In a similar fashion, you have company over time. So you can see here again the same kind of peak, and then going down, and all the companies here have their own color. You can choose if you don't want to see one, say you don't want to see Roches here or Roques, you unclick it, or if you want in the list to see other things like you want to see Mattel or Technica, you just add them to it and they will add onto your graph. Visualize it like that, or you can visualize it in a XY version where you could say here you have all the companies, here you have over time, and you can hide this and say, okay, now I want to see, for example, the 9 patents of Decathlon here in this year. You basically click on that and you see the patents in detail. So these are time-related ones. Now, to go even in more detail, you could say, I don't want just a timeline, I want a line X something and Y something. For example, companies on the X-axis and countries on the Y-axis. Add that. So anything versus anything, you have here companies versus academics, who is patenting with which universities, or companies versus field of invention, companies versus trademarks mentioned, and so on. Any of these kind of X1, Y1, and show me the graph. So let's have a look. Here you have the country versus companies. So what did it make? You have countries here, companies here, and you can see France, for example, has Decathlon, Fargrave Plastics, Nordica, Rossignol, and Salomon. And if they're overlapping a bit, you can also move from visualization, say, to a heat map, and there you go. You click on them, of course, you have the patents again behind it. Compare. So compare anything versus anything. Then we go to maps. Now, maps is basically a grid that we created in which you can then see all the patents. And there is several maps in here, and I will launch some here to visualize. In the meantime, also I will launch one of my favorites we will come to is the competitor analysis. And say we do a competitor analysis from a certain company. Whilst this is running, competitor is quite interesting because here I'm not just giving competitor, I'm giving competitor of Salomon in the area of roller skates. Let me run that. Welcome back to that. So first one ready here is domain. So you can ask, in which domains are these patents? It can be interesting, for example, if you look at a certain problem and you want to know who's in which domain is talking about this problem of, for example, speed versus heat or something like that. So here what you see is human needs, operation, transport. So this is, for example, vehicle wheels is in transport classified, where human needs is in, here is heads and head coverings, probably helmets. So you can click on that, and then you find behind it the patents that talk about helmets here, or protective helmets, or lighted helmets, and so on. So in detail. Domains, and in the same way, we have created code map. And code map is one of my favorite maps also, because it shows you all the patents on one grid. As you know, there's about 250,000 classes. So what we build is a classification grid, A, B, C, and so on. So, and then if you go A in detail, what you have, A has its subclasses, so A43 or A, here you have A43, which is footwear, and you can click again, and always you go down and down into the level of the patent, and you can follow under here, for example, saying A43B, characteristic features of footwear, and so on. And then if you like anything like that, you say, well, let me view it first, maybe in a big screen, and then I can select a certain area that I like, for example, this one, and what you get is basically all the patents behind it. More interestingly, what I like in this map is if you go to this map and you want to pinpoint, say, who is where. So I can reset the zoom to the normal view here, and then I can say add a certain applicant, for example, Salomon. Bring Salomon on the map, and I see where I have the patents, and then I say I want to compare Salomon with, say, K2. And you get Salomon is here, no K2. K2 is here, no Salomon, and here they are together. Now you can also put any kind of item on there and say, I want to know who is working on brake. And I say add, and what I have is where they work on brakes. So you can see it like that. I can see it little stacks like that. So very nice map to basically see what is going on in which classes. And on top of the classes, you will see shortly what is there, like the boots, the shoes, and the coating surfaces, and so on. will always show on top. So that's
all right. So I don't want to bore you with all these things. This is a meticulous search, and it would take some patience also. But it is easy, fun to use tool. Can you hear me? So, I'm going to get on to my previous slide. Can you see my slide now?
Not yet, sir.
Say that again, Dr. Nidhi.
Not yet. We cannot see it yet.
Okay.
Yes, now we can.
All right, we start talking here. So I want to move on to the next slide and wrap this up. By the way, the intelligent ideas takes time to become reality. You know, this is a person who is very popular. He has done you know, several iterations, say 5,127 iterations before he made the final product. And he's a very popular person, and the journey he had is, you know, at the 15th prototype, he had third child, and by 2,600 odd, his wife and himself were counting pennies, and they started, you know, actually his wife, at the iteration number 3,727 started giving art lessons for some extra cash. This is a journey which is sometimes, you know, happy and quick, but sometimes, you know, some ideas take time to get refined in a way so that you can control the market around the world or a better, brilliant idea. So these were tough times for that gentleman, and each failure brought him closer to solving the problem. You know, going through 5,127 prototypes, it's not that easy. And the company today is making 5 billion in world arena. So here is the person. You know, I'm not again going with the biotech. You know, this is a journey. This is easy sometimes, but this gentleman made it all. And this is a great human story. Why I'm bringing this thing, and not to scare you, but to give you inspiration on consistency, persistence, resilience, on doing something that you believe in, and gather your strengths, work with your colleagues to be successful. This seems to be a hard story. Even, you know, the Edison failed 1,000 times. You know, if you want to look back, those were the stories. That doesn't mean that I'm scaring you guys, but that's how the journey happens sometimes. You know, each time you fail, you learn something and you become better entrepreneur, if not a better person, and you might be a good problem solver too, because you have been through this journey. Thank you very much for your time.